Hello, one and all. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on September the 6th of 2023. You know, the thing about Septembers is that there is only 1 month of the year that's like them. And you know what? It's confusing because of the Roman calendar. You want to call it the 7th month because it's Sept, but it's not. It's the 9th month. Anyway, that's not actually a very good setup for a joke.
I
But
was
if I react,
I was like, is this a joke or is Nick actually just going to deliver knowledge to us?
just like you deliver like just random trivia in the form of a joke. You know, it's like hey, you know, I've heard that the skin is actually the heaviest tissue, the heaviest organ in your body.
But Tish. Tip your servers, everybody. I'm gone. You do one shit joke and leave.
It's not even a joke. It's just like what sounds like the setup, but it's really just an observation.
You should. It would be really funny if you go up, like you're going to present facts. You're like, Mr. Knowledge. And then you go up there and you just spout urban legends. You're like, you know, you eat 8 spiders during your lifetime.
Or even like it gets into like, you know, I've noticed that airline food is not very tasty.
Boo!
Anyway.
A cane coming off stage. Like, we're not at the Apollo. Like, we keep one around just to be safe.
Just have a snare drum ready at any time.
They gotta keep both on hand.
Guys, it's your friends. It's your funny manga talkie friends. It's Nick and it's Quinn, and we're here to talk about probably much funnier people than us, but I don't know. It's all in the eye of the beholder. It's a series that we were talking about today is called Shoten. This is a manga about double act comedy.
Yes.
And as it so happens, it is created by a double act, so to speak, written by Akinari Asakura, who I kind of looked up his credentials and not really anything that I was really familiar with. But illustrated, of course, by Takeshi Obata, whom we all know as the illustrator of Hikaru no Go. So, and nothing else. And
nothing else you want to mention. Well, Gakyohote.
Right.
Beloved Gakyohote. Well, beloved from far away if I don't think about it too much.
Why was there so much references to sex in this elementary school class?
No, I just remember Taito being dumb. That's all. They're like, that was something you made as a show. Like, oh. Well, then we're very funny. Carry on.
Thank you very much. This is a pretty new series. It runs in the monthly magazine Jump Square. It's been running since November 2021. And it is, like I said, it's about a double act comedy. We've got a couple of main characters, Shijimi and Taiyo, who, of course, come together at the start of this. They decide to become a two-man comedy show. And it is about them getting into the insanely competitive world of double act comedy.
High school double act comedy, apparently.
High school double act comedy. I was going to, like, as I was starting off reading this, I was like, oh, they're getting into these competitions and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll make a joke about it. I was like, yeah, it's just like any sports story where you got to go to the Koshin. And then they refer to the comedy competition that they're going to join as the Koshin of stand-up comedy. And I was like, well, fuck, fine.
Yeah.
I can't make that joke now.
They're taking all your best material from you, Nick, before you even began.
That's right. It's disheartening. So I'll have to take refuge in stupidity and just not be funny, and that way they won't take any of my material.
I will just occasionally pepper in fart sound effects to tickle the delight of the audiences. You'll never know when it's going to happen.
I know that this is only... I know that this... See, the moment they'll least expect it is right after you announce you're going to start doing it. Hence why it's the prime moment to start doing it. So, yeah, bizarre. I was told, like, I was given the preamble for the series. I was like, oh, it's about a couple of guys who are getting into, double act comedy and stuff. I was like, all right, cool.
Uh-huh.
I didn't expect this to be basically a sports series.
It is very adjacent to it. It is very much like we have to enter competitions and we are scored. It's in a world where we have like Akane-banashi being like one of the best selling manga right now. You'd be like, yeah, it's like in that wheelhouse. It's like, well, Akane-banashi sometimes does actual contests, but most of the time, like, she's just kind of being graded on her own subjective scale, or maybe she just has to
Right.
achieve something. In this, basically everything they do is a contest.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the goal of the series, is to like win. There's two different contests, like the Y Co or something like that, and then something like that. There's like two different contests. So like we want to win these both in the same year.
And so when they do that, that means that they'll be successful comedians, I guess. Because as we all know, winning a competition sets you up for success for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
Look at all those people who have won Young Manga Awards who then went on to become insanely successful mangaka. Yeah, it happens with some of them, but it's like it happens with all of them. No, not a single one of them fails to do it.
Nick, just remember American Idol and all the great acts it's given us, like Carrie Underwood, the
Ruben
stronger
Studdard.
lady. She's one of the few I actually should know.
The stronger lady.
I couldn't think of her name. I was like daytime talk show singer lady. And then I think 17 other people. I have no idea how many seasons they've done to that show, but I can't imagine each one of them as a winner.
I would make a joke, but I never watched that show, so I'm only familiar with what was like the people that were actually talked about when it was at its zenith. So
Exactly. I have like a vague I have like a strong knowledge of season 1. It was Kelly Clarkson, I think Justin Turini or something like that. And then it starts getting weaker until about season 5. I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Right. Is that show still going?
Yeah, it is
I don't.
Still going. I still see previews for it sometimes.
Jesus Christ! All right, so I was like, I'm so disgusted. I have to move on. So, how dare a competition reality show continue? So our main characters are Shijimi, who is a very like quick thinking, like genius comedy writer who has, even prior to the start of the series, like he does all these like submit jokes on random prompts for a radio show, has been winning them over and over and over and over again. So he's very clever, comes up with this great material. He also has a crippling bout of stage fright. And it is something that they have had to continue to deal with as the series has continued. It's not just something that's like, oh, he has stage fright, but being in the comedy act will help him get over it. It's like, no, it's a constant challenge that he has to deal with. It's rather like refreshing to have a series like this deal with like, hey, a stage performer who has stage fright, because there are some very successful performers who have suffered stage fright and did so throughout their entire careers. So it's nice to not just have it be like, oh, just like, a thing that he just overcomes in the first part of the series or something. He's partnered up with Tayo, who is the opposite of him in a lot of ways. He's a very strong improv performer. He's got a background in acting in dramas when he was a kid. So he's got a lot of stage presence, a lot of charisma, the ability to adapt on the fly to a lot of things, but he literally struggles to understand what things are actually funny. And we get an explanation for why this is eventually, but it's still not very clear why he doesn't understand what is and isn't funny. It's just that he just doesn't. So
Yeah, he is the entertaining, chaotic, charismatic goofball, but he doesn't. He's not going to be able to write his own material. He needs someone to write it for him, basically, because otherwise he'll just go out and he'll flop around on stage and it won't be very good. We get like evidence of this that he was going to take part in like a school comedy festival, and his idea was just to kind of throw on as many goofy like comedy accessories as possible.
and just more, more, and that eventually you'll find it. So the two of them, like, yeah, we start off at that point where Tayo's going to put on this. He needs to find a second person for his act. Nobody wants to join it. He kind of tricks Shijimi. He does trick Shijimi into being the second member of the group, and they immediately, hit it off. They get a bunch of laughs at that school comedy bit that they do on a sketch that Shijimi has to make up basically 15 minutes before they go on, which really demonstrates both, how good he is at thinking up material very quickly and how good Tayo is at picking up on that. And then they start to go after. They're like, okay, yeah, let's really do this. Let's actually, I want to do this because both of them have reasons for wanting to become comedians. Tayo's has to do with a lot of baggage, and Shijimi's is because there was a girl that he liked who liked to laugh, and he always liked the confidence to joke around with her. Basically, it's just
It is one of these things where everyone in this series, every comedian has a reason for why they got into comedy, and the answer to all of them really is a sad backstory, which I guess is true. I'm funny because of a lot of trauma, I think, in my life as well, but it's a very different mode. It's like basically, what if everyone had like their own?
is that why I'm not funny?
No comment. And everyone has like their own miniature like One Piece level flashback of like, why are you into comedy? And what is his name? Sinichi? Shijimi. His is, yeah, very similar. Basically, when we were told about this series, it's like, oh, you immediately are like, oh, it's Oba and Obata doing the thing. You're like, no, it's not Oba, or it's not Obata. No, sorry, it's not Oba. It is Obata. But it is still basically the backstory of Bakugan or Bakuman, where it's like
it kind of is.
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, there's a girl I really like, and I failed. But one day I'm gonna become a great stand-up comedian, and then it literally is a plot point in the newest chapter. She has showed up to the show.
She's shown up to the comedy show.
So it's
I mean, her and every other non-comedian character that's been introduced so far is attending this one show. It's actually really satisfying to see them all show up. Like, oh, they're all showing up. Cool. Yeah. To its credit, and yes, you're completely correct that there is definitely still a lot of like Oba and Obata feelings to this. Like, there's still like a lot of, like two dudes stuff going on.
What could you possibly mean, Nick? They have two female characters, and in the opening description of their introduction, like the 1-2 woman comedy group, they're like, these two have achieved the final perfected form of female comedy. And I was like, what does that mean? You make it sound like it's a Dragon Ball transformation. Like, our final perfected form. We'll talk about our pussies. You're like, come on, this is absurd.
To its credit, I can at least name several female characters in this story, and they actually have like distinct personalities.
Yes, I actually do think there is a better assortment of female characters in this than other Obata series, which feels mean because he didn't write most of those.
He did not, no.
But I imagine still in the creative process it's relevant. But yeah.
Right. I do, but yeah, in terms of going to the backstory, like Tayo's, we get like a several chapter long flashback to explain like how he actually got into comedy, and it is shockingly devastating just how sad it is and how fucking evil his rival is.
It is wild that they were like, because they have a lot of different two-person comedy groups. They need to give them like a defined style, and we're eventually led to believe that there's one group who are going to be our kind of antagonists called Passionate Sandbag. And their gimmick, I should say gimmick, but like what defines them is that they're mean. They will insult people. They don't care about anybody. They are fine with punching down. And that is like, oh, it's our antagonist. And then there's just another duo who are just evil. They're just evil. They're evil stand-up comedians.
Their group name is Brutus, as in the guy who betrayed Caesar.
It is worth noting we have not gotten to see these two characters perform yet.
No.
But their sort of behind the scenes demeanor has been very much like we are the Aegon of this series. Like, we will push children downstairs because it is funny.
Yeah, I mean, one of them, it's like kind of like default level, like just kind of Shonen Jump rival guy, kind of behavior, because like he's in line with Hanamori, who is probably the most important female character. She's Shijimi and Taio's like biggest fan,
Mm-hmm.
and becomes kind of their manager. I mean, they're not successful enough to have an official manager, so she's their manager. But
She made their Twitter account. That makes
right.
that makes them their manager.
So she's like she and Nazutani's partner are in line together, and she wants to get this. She's been waiting in line to get this pastry, and it gets up to just him, and you can take a maximum of 2, and there's 2 left. So he looks behind him, looks at her, and he's like, well, I guess I'll do the gentlemanly thing here. Give me 2. Takes them.
Doesn't he throw one away then too? He's like, I only wanted one.
He doesn't even want the other one. But meanwhile, his partner, I don't know if I should get into this because it's kind of spoilers, I guess. He's basically a murderer. Like,
he's essentially like a slightly less sociopathic version of Cartman. Like, he kind of just maneuvers around life being kind of shitty. And when something is taken from him, he's like, no, I actually want it. Like, something he's been neglecting all his time. He suddenly wants it now because it's being taken from him. And he's just a jerk. As again, these two characters have not performed comedy yet, so we don't really know what their style is. But like, it's described that they're like ruthless. They won't stop until they get everything they want, basically. So that's kind of what they're setting them up to be.
Heel comedians, just what we need in this.
I'm truly waiting for these motherfuckers to show up with like a chair and to hit some. Actually, no, they did kind of do that right before this contest. The one like walks up to Taio and it whispers something into his ear that's absolutely rattling him. So like, yeah, they are not above like kind of just like fucking up the competition to win these comedy contests.
They're really mean and it's really weird. But hey, it makes stuff really interesting. This is a series that is, I should say, it's funny.
Uh-huh. Yes.
But I found it to be the funniest when it had nothing to do with the stand-up comedy that was going on. Because when it gets into that, and I'm not to say that like, oh, the acts that they're doing aren't funny. Some of them are like, there's a good progression of jokes to them. I feel like the second act that they're Shijimi and Taio.
The zoo.
Yeah, the zoo.
The zoo is the
fantastic.
One that
fantastic.
Shit made me like laugh. I was like, shit. All right, you got me.
Just a fantastic escalation of a very simple joke. It was incredible to witness. By the way, their duo name, their act name is One Way Ticket to the Top. Or what was
hysterical.
One Way Ticket to the Top. Yeah, it's too much of a mouthful for me. I do like that they come across someone who just calls them out instead. But a lot of the times when they're involved in competitions, it's not about like, oh, this is funny and this is funny this way. It's about explaining how you capture an audience's attention and entertain them. How the order of acts determines what you should do for your own performance in order to get the best reaction. If you go on first, then the audience is cold and you have to do something. If you go on after someone has done this really disruptive act, then if you just stick to normal stuff, then what are you going to do? You've got to find a way to break through what people have gotten used to and stuff. And so there's this more just like analysis of strategy and also of what you need to do in order to kind of like get into your fundamentals. How do you overcome the fact that one of your performers is a really bad stage performer? He, has difficulty memorizing his lines. His delivery is very stuttery a lot of the time because he gets nervous. How do you deal with that? And when as they come across their competition, it's a matter of analysis of like, oh, this group, they specialize in this, It's very shonen.
Yes.
And so because of that, a lot of the time you're more into like, oh, this is why this act is working for this audience, not, oh, ha ha ha, this is an incredibly funny series of jokes. Removed from that context, when you don't have to worry about like all this analysis and stuff like that, there are just some characters that are just naturally funny, and you're not the narrative of the story isn't this person is trying to be funny for these people. It's here's this absurd situation, and this person who, in trying to just do normal things in their life, is just naturally funny. It tends to be funnier. Like Shichibi's family is hilarious, for example.
Yes.
So there's what is a series that I found to be very gripping and at times very funny, at times surprisingly heartbreaking. And I think I've got to keep on reading it. I think it's very good.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with a lot of that. I think that this is a captivating series. I'm able to go along with it and enjoy it. I do appreciate that it's not just like, here are some comedy routines that I as a writer wrote. It's really trying to work into like, okay, as a comedian, how do I work this crowd? How do I follow this act? How do I polish this script? How do I deal with, something like a joke bombing? All these sorts of things are moments they have to deal with. How do I deal with going on first? And I think there's unique perspectives. Like, one of the first challenges they run into is they have to perform at a contest where almost everyone in the audience is there for a specific person. And like, I've done I've done open mic comedy nights where that is the case, where you're just like struggling to get any laughs beyond the small group you have. So there's like stuff that like you would legitimately find is like a challenge. There's an element though I do need to bring up, which is I love comedy. I've done it to a very small extent. I guess this is considered some form of comedy, I guess. And I also just enjoy it, and I enjoy hearing comedians talk about comedy. This series falls into the same wheelhouse a lot of things that try to deal with comedy falls into, which is, it's like, this is a piece of media about comedy. Comedy is very serious.
Yeah.
That, like, there's so many times characters are like, we have to win this contest or we're gonna lose, like, or everything falls apart, which I get from a shonen perspective. Like, you need to create these things.
Gotta have stakes.
It's just very funny because these characters are like so weirdly joking when they're not on stage. Like, when two characters are like interacting, they are never busting each other's balls or telling jokes. They are like very clinically having a conversation with one another. And there is one moment in particular that stands out. It's a very recent moment as well, but they are currently, right now as we are recording this episode, in the midst of the big tournament they've been talking about kind of since the beginning of this series. It's just started. And we are introduced to the wide cast of characters, and this is a televised event, so someone's interviewing them. And I don't know why you would ever ask this. It's such a weird question to ask at like a comedy show, but they're like, why did you get into stand-up comedy? And like, I don't know what to call him, like the energetic
rising boy.
Yeah, energetic jerk kid grabs the mic. He's like, I think I speak for everybody here when I say we became comedians because comedians are the coolest people in the world. And I truly do not cringe a lot of time, but it was the dorkiest. It is the
Oh yeah.
most uncomedian thing in the world to sit there and be like, we're comedians and we rule. Like, you would never do. It's so embarrassing. Like, I would immediately disqualify them if I had any say. Like, you're gone. Get out of here, kid.
Just think about, some of the people out there that are like, really, really successful stand-up comedians. It's like, I was like, oh, Patton Oswalt, yes, the coolest person in the world.
Yeah. Like, it's just this thing that, like, most comedians, even if they do have, because there is like a rock star quality sometimes
Yes.
to comedians, they're not going to say it themselves, though. If you do,
No.
you're Dane Cook and you're an asshole. Also, he's a weird pervert now. So these are not the standards you should be holding yourself up to. I'm just saying, like, comedians would not say these things or act this way. So there's that level. I don't think it'll bother as many people as it does me. Just because I've listened to enough people who have, like, I forget the show Mindy Kaling did, or it might have been a movie with like Emma Thompson. I think she's the older one, right? Emma, no, I forget. I don't know. It was like a late night comedy show movie, and Mindy Kaling wrote it, who is like a comedy writer herself. But it's such a dour, serious movie. You're just like, this isn't what comedy writing is. Like, anytime I see a comedy writer write about their career, they take the piss out of everything. So it's just very strange to see this, where it's like, no, it's very cool. We're stand-up comedians. In fact, it's super cool. Also, we have a sad backstory. That's why we're comedians.
Right. I believe that there is an old expression, which is all comedians want to be dramatic actors. I think it has to do with, like, a love of stage performance and a wanting and an admiration for the stuff that they can't do, kind of thing. And yeah, you are absolutely correct in terms of everything that I have ever seen about, like, you know, stories about funny people are funny. Stories about comedians are not, are not very serious. And I don't know what it is exactly about it. Maybe it has to do with, there's the reality that making it as a comedian, of course, can be an incredibly difficult journey. And I do think that, hey, if you're looking into, like, a realistic depiction of what it's like to, be someone who's trying to get into comedy, this ain't it. This is a story. This is a shonen, high school sports story where you don't get into, like, all of the looking into, like, oh, all the stuff, all the people who just, like, get into this and just literally aren't good at it but keep on going after it. There's a glimpse of it, and there is an acknowledgement of the reality, because it turns out that Shizimi's father, like, was an aspiring folk musician for a really long time, like 15 years of his adulthood, and he just did not make it, and he kept on going after it until eventually he reached a point where he's like, I can't make it. I've got to quit. I've wasted too much of my life doing this, and I'm never gonna make it. And then the people who were kind of rooting him on while having their own really successful jobs are like, well, why are you quitting, you fucking quitter? It's like a very nice taste of reality. Is like, well, yeah, and once he started doing other stuff, yes, he's got a family and he's happy now, so he's fine. He did not need to do that in order to be successful. He's not a failure just because he didn't become a successful musician. But there is not very much examination of, like, okay, in order to be a comedian, you've got to, like, make as many shows as you possibly can. You've got to get your name out there, even if you're not getting paid for it. These are kids who have the luxury of joining all these competitions where there's prize money at the end, and making it as far as they already have means that they get to appear on radio shows talking about them when they're both fucking 15 and stuff. So it's not a series about, like, oh, the grind of making it as any sort of performer. It's a series that deals with the craft of comedy, but not a lot of the, suffering for your art side of it, at least thus far.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I'd really even want to see that out of this series.
No, me either.
To be fair, I think the series does well at what it's trying to do. There's also a level that I completely accept that there's like a cultural divide that exists here. I don't watch a lot of Japanese comedy, so I don't really know how that functions. Like, one of the things in my mind is that, like, every routine they do, and I think they have to do this because it would be boring to see them do the same routine over and over again, but they write a new routine for everything they do, which is, like, very contrary. But I assume it is in that thing. They're like, we can't do the same routine again because it will just not play well for the reader. And I think a lot of the decisions they do are decisions they make. Whether like, yeah, if everyone's just silly and jokey, this series doesn't have a dramatic weight because comedians are also notorious for not being real and it being oftentimes very difficult to talk to them about anything. So I think the series does a good job for what it's executing on. As I said, like I appreciate that they do show that there is an art to comedy. That it is not just like, hey, I came up with a funny idea, I said it, and I got paid money. It's like, hey,
Right.
we have to figure out how to win over this audience. We have to figure out how to refine this material. We have to figure out how what we're doing is going to do, and react to who came before us, and what's it going to do to who comes after us. Like, we have to figure all this stuff out. And I think I can really appreciate that they showed that there is a lot of art that goes into making comedy.
Mhm. It's for what it is. I think it's a very good series. I don't know if I would put it above like some of the other series in its line that we've talked about, like not just Akane-banashi, but other stuff about like stories about actors and stuff. But I think that it's just like if you want a series that hey you're going to read like once a month, I think it's very well crafted for that, especially
Mm-hmm.
because it has a very good focus on this month's chapter is about this act.
Yeah.
And you read the chapter and it's like, oh, that act was interesting in this way or that way, and now the chapter's done and the act is done. So it's very good episodically as well. uh, so yeah, you can check it out for free if you live in areas where the Viz services and Manga Plus and such are available. It's on Manga Plus. It's on the Shonen Jump website. And if you've got an account through Shonen Jump, you can read the entire series for free. It's only 21 chapters. They're long chapters because it's a monthly series. But it's still pretty easy to catch up on if you would like to.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing to note is this is a still relatively young series. This is pretty easy to catch up on, and I imagine you'll have a decent time with it. I think in my mind, it's pretty fun. I don't know if it's not the best thing I'm reading right now, but it's definitely enjoyable and worth it. Also, chapters, as you kind of mentioned, are very substantial. This isn't like Boruto or even World Trigger. World Trigger's
Well,
lengthy
you
for
say that
different
about this
reasons.
week.
But the idea of like sometimes with monthly series, it feels like the content runs through very quickly. I honestly, chapters of this felt like I was like, oh wow, it's got to almost be done. I'd like tap the screen and be like, halfway through. Oh, what a
Yeah.
blessing!
Agreed. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay. We have manga to talk about.
We have a whole
And
bunch. We should also note the order of the
uh,
recap is shifting slightly. We're just
a little
moving
bit
a
of a
couple.
change.
We're moving a couple series that have established themselves to be sticking around for a long time out of that section and moving them around. Also trying to buffer some of the end of the podcast a little bit.
Right. So we're gonna start things off still, however, with My Hero Academia. It's chapter number 399, Organic Mingling Clusters of Light. So All Might, things are still not looking so good for him. He's managed to hit All for One hard a few times, but he's also, taken some heavy blows himself. And he's a regular straw man guy, so he's got bones that don't regenerate. Uh, but he calls on some more support items and basically goes Dr. Octopus. He combines the abilities of Tentacle and Froppy in order to have suction cup tentacles. It feels like a little bit of a Froppy's not very well represented in this entire outfit. She just gets the suction pads.
There's a lot of stretches going on here in how he's representing his students. It's
Right,
fine.
right.
The effort is there. He's like, I'm going to represent all of my students. And they're like, how are you going to represent Sugar May? He's like, I don't know. The machine will punch hard. Got it. All right, next one. They're like, how do you do Froppy? Like, I don't know, something that's sort of sticky in a way.
She's got so many facets to her quirk. You could do so many things. Suction cups.
Suction cups.
So All Might briefly, analyzes like, okay, if I manage to deal a lot of damage to All for One, then he starts to revert. So I am affecting this if I just manage to hit him hard some more. But of course, All for One is still All for One, and so he says like, you're just laughing 1 minute like an insane person, then you're scampering around and hiding in the next. I know what you're trying to do. I don't need to waste my excess strength just to twist your garish grin into an agonized grimace. And then he says he's going to use power saver mode, which is a really weird thing for him to say. It feels like, you don't call anything power saver mode unless you've got, like, I don't know, a laptop power. That's the only time that you should call anything that.
Is your issue that he's saying that because he's like, I'm gonna kick your ass, turn on reserve power, or is it because it's just like, no, nothing has power saving mode unless it's a laptop? I'd rather see a little battery symbol going down, mister.
You know, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm going to go into power saver mode to beat you. That's all I need to do. But I am still at only like 35%, and I do have a long day ahead of me. And I won't.
You know what? I'm really not thinking this through. I'm not even thinking about what I'm going to do for dinner time. I got to get directions. I need my phone for that.
I don't know how to make my way downtown without GPS.
Yeah. He's like, I've never even been to this city before. And like, you live in this city. Oh.
Yeah.
No, I'm definitely going to need my GPS to get home.
So he summons some really, really big mouths to attack All Might, who immediately is like, bullshit, you're not using power saver mode. He's like, yeah, I am. So, the 6-year-olds are arguing over their play fight. And so, now All Might's really pressed, it seems like, and All For One's mocking him, because like, oh, you're not so smiley and laughy anymore now. And he refers to him as an old fool providing hospice care for himself with shoddy simulacrums of the children's powers, which is a sentence and a half.
It's a pretty brutal line, to be honest.
And then he tells him, hey, you're still on camera, fucking smile, bitch. And he calls him the symbol of impotence, which is also really mean. And then he just pops out of a wall while All Might's running and does something.
He punches him or something, but it's that little mouth as he comes out. Like, what the fuck are you doing, my guy?
He punches him so hard that I think All Might's arm comes off. I think. It's hard to tell, but there's some very bloody and broken bits of him now. But despite this, and despite the fact that we also kind of just look inside All Might's mind, it's that same visual for when he was, clutching around the flame of One for All, except this time he's just going, ow! Ow!
Ow.
Despite all that, he says to All For One, you still don't get it. Lights tend to flicker on and off. While my light might be snuffed out, someone's sure to pick up my torch and shine on! And when that radiance meets the darkness, there is... no need for light. So, one of the many, many, many fights that we saw very briefly alluded to, very, very briefly, was that there was a murderer who was released from Tartarus named Kunieda. We've not seen any of the actual fight aside from her just showing up, I think, at the beginning when all the fights were clustered up.
Uh-huh.
She's basically killed all the heroes that came to confront her by turning them into flower pots. Got evil flowers that feed on their life force sprouting out of them, including Aoyama, who's still alive. And the flowers, like little jerks, take away his belt so he can't shoot lasers.
What a jerk.
Just the meanest thing. It's like, oh, you've got the weakest quirk of your class. I'm also just going to take your belt away. Fuck you.
And he just sits there floating up there. Pew, pew, because he can't stop it. It's like Cyclops. He has to watch lasers shoot out of his belly button.
And they've got all these mean-looking flowers clustered around him. And so she refers to him as very pathetic. And he says, I said merci because you remind myself of how shamefully I've lived, and it's given me the desire to shine from deep down within my core. And his belly starts to glow, and he shoots out a whole bunch of lasers from his belly, and they just miss and shoot out wildly and don't touch anything. So Kunieda says, ha ha, you suck. And fucking Did this actually happen? I don't know if this actually
This
happened.
happens. This is actually happening.
I say that because I I could not actually believe they gave a moment to Hagakure for
It
this.
makes sense. Like they everyone gets their chance to show off. I was so confused though at first because I forgot about Hagakure. So I was just like,
Right,
why are his lasers shooting into a giant naked woman? Like I don't
right.
understand. And then you're like, oh, it's Hagakure who, of course, for very dramatic reasons, important
Very
narrative
dramatic.
reasons, has to be naked all the time.
Yeah, she's got to go through the escape room naked too. So,
Uh,
so, uh, she uses her invisibility refraction thing on the naval laser that Ayama has fired out, and um, yeah, Kunieda gets hit by it. Hooray! And All Might continues on his speech to one All for One, saying, "Let there be light in the darkness, so that I might twinkle as well. I'm not here to lose, All for One. Know this name as you burn away. Can't stop twinkling."
what a great fucking final panel! Can't stop twinkling.
And a
Uh,
fucking satellite shoots a laser down at All for One.
it is legitimately very cool. Um, the chapter is a bit strange because it has to have like these like 6 pages devoted to Aoyama and Hagakure in the middle to like give their sort of duality credence
Mm,
to All Might's move. But I do appreciate it because it's nice to see Aoyama redeemed after being the traitor, and like, hey, he gets a moment to shine, quite literally shine during this. And I do
yes.
like the combo with Hagakure, who's like, hey, I bend in warp light. I can reflect your light back. It's a cool tag team move when things look bad. I wish we had spent like a little time in this because they also
Hmm.
know, like, yeah, a lot of like heroes fell. And I'm like, were any important heroes in that group?
Not that I can remember.
Like, the one panel was like, made me wonder. I was like, is Fat Gum in there?
And well, I mean that flower looks like his mouth, but
I don't like that at all. Um, So the idea of like, yeah, it feels like I would have liked to have spent a little time in this, but we get this. Whatever. We're gonna try to firmly establish this fight with All Might and All for One is like what we're actually really focusing on. And I do like that there's like a narrative synergy there. It doesn't perfectly work because the scene with Ayama is so short, but
hmm.
I appreciate that we got that over the idea of like nothing or like an epilogue, or they're like, hey, if you ever want to find out what Ayama did during it, read the light novel that explains it. Then you'll know how Kira got his sword.
Yeah. I do like that it's also, an Aoyama Hagakure team up because Hagakure was the one who, discovered Aoyama was the traitor, went to confront him with Deku in that sequence. And so this, helps to close that loop and gives the both of them a little moment that, they didn't need to have. They're
Yeah.
very, very, very unimportant characters in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I do think it was weird that we just cut to this as if Horikoshi had just like suddenly remembered, like, oh right, he's doing a big call out to Aoyama. I should establish what Aoyama is doing
I
throughout this.
Yeah, I think also it plays into it. Horikoshi is writing shorter chapters right now, so I think that plays. This
Possibly,
is like a 15-page chapter, so it just feels very short in there. But I care more about Horikoshi's health, so please draw whatever
yes.
you're willing to. Um, but still, I had a good time. I think this All Might fight is turning out to be pretty fucking epic. I do love how he keeps adding all of his students, and Can't Stop Twinkling is such a great
Can't
like
stop
one
twinkling.
to end a chapter with.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Undead Unluck then.
Yeah, let's talk about Undead Unluck. Number 173, the jerk as he stands is. So we open in sort of a weird thing where
Yeah.
Chikara's parents are here in Union, and they're like,
Yes.
hey, are you guys cool with doing this? And they're like, excuse me, sorry. They're like, yeah, absolutely. We didn't want to like not be in contact with you for years on end. And it cuts over to Nico. It's like, oh, you're coming this time, Bao. And he's like, yeah, the others said I better get out of there. They never get stronger. And Shin says something like, oh, forgive me. I wish to see Haruka grow up. And I'm like, kind of wondering what's going on until Ichigo's just like, let's do the time warp again. And you're like, oh, okay.
They're skipping ahead.
They're going forward in time. So it's worth noting a couple things. Bao is going to be going with them, which is, sure, relevant. But Ishin is not. Old man Ishin. So presumably we will now finally get the Ishin that we knew and understood. So that's sort of the setup for a couple of these things. We immediately cut over to Apocalypse.
I like how we spent all that time establishing Chikara's friend in high school, and he's not there.
Yeah, he is not there, and we'll never remember this kid because 16 years are skipped. Apocalypse is just sitting there like, stop using my quests like a time machine. But he just notes, he's like, was it wise to do that? There may have been negators you missed by warping so far forward in time. And Fuko is very confident. She's like, there aren't. Guaranteed. And Nico's like, how are you so certain about this? And she's like, no, I know. Because he even brings up, he's like, this loop has been different than everything else that's been going on previously. Like, there's been things that have thrown you off. So how do you know that nothing has changed? She's like, oh, I know, because I asked. He's like, asked? You mean asked who? And she's like, it's a field I feel like you're not partial to. And Nico's like,
the occult?
Nico's immediately like, did you really base your entire decision on the occult? And Fuko's like, I'm going, I'm leaving, go on.
Bye, I gotta take this magic staff, goodbye!
I'm getting out of here. And she literally does, she flies away to Paris, France.
I love that Fuko has all this confidence. She has literally centuries of wisdom on her side. And she will still just run away from awkward conversations.
She's like, gotta get out of here. So yeah, it's 2015 now. She's in Paris, France. She kind of bemoans the fact that she's like, I've been on this planet for so long, but I still feel like I'm sticking out everywhere I go. And she's kind of like, maybe this person's not even gonna show up. Like, you know, maybe she wasn't chosen to be a negator in this world, and you know, if she does, you know, it's all fine. And we get like a little bit of a flashback as Fuko's kind of thinking about this person. It's pretty clear who it is. We all know it's Latla, who's the only person who's been established to be a fortune teller in this series.
Right.
But she's thinking about that 4.6 billion-year-old promise I made to the both of you. And Latla shows up, and she's immediately angry. She's like, you said we'd reunite in 16 years, but you never specified a date. If I wasn't as awesome as I am, I know we never would have met.
You're lucky that this motorcycle helmet exactly conforms to the shape of my hair.
Yeah. So they're like, wait, this is confusing. Like, you look exactly the same as like what happened back then. It's been 16 years. I'm 21 years old now, which immediately had me concerned. Like, did Fuko go to a 5-year-old for fortune telling? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, she did. She's like, so did it work out? The fortune telling? You know, she starts going this flashback of how Fuko met her, and it was the day that Latla's sister had her illness discovered. And Fuko meets her and is like, hey, I'm here to make good on a promise, and I'm going to meet you again in 16 years. She also, in that time, asked her basically, like, where do you think my friends are? And kind of used that to pinpoint some things. And she's just like, hey, keep honing your fortune-telling skills. At 16 years, that's when I'm going to tell you who I am and what awaits the three of you. And that's such a fucking cool line. Like, I feel like you could set up an entire novel on that premise. A character shows up, it's like, hey, in 16 years, I'm going to tell you who I am and explain what's going to happen to the three of you. Be like, the three of what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I almost
could have this to a person like that hasn't even met the other two people yet, and it's like kind of like getting closer and closer to the time.
Yeah.
And you can have a whole bunch of adventures even before that point. Yeah.
She has met her sister at this point and Rip, but like the idea that like, hey, you don't know what three are you talking about? What's the significance or anything like that? Latla is, of course, like, Now that I think about it, you not telling me the date was a test, wasn't it? To make sure my telling skills improve. And Fuko's like, yes. And it has a little sweet thought bubble that's like, nope, I forgot to tell her. And then Lala's like, you're lying, aren't you? She's like, yes.
So good.
I fucking love Fuko in this chapter. She's so goddamn funny. So she's like, all right, what's going on? What do you want? Just so you know, whether you talk or not, we will not stop. If you choose to keep quiet, I'll just force a peek into your future and get my info that way. Mental warfare won't work against my fortune telling. Fuko's like, okay. This is the kind of person Latla is. She'll go to any lengths to help her loved ones, even at the cost of her life. But this time, I'm not going to let you handle all this alone. So she explains everything and gives her all the details of the last loop. Explain how even in the end, it was like, hey, Rip and you were going to do everything you could to get this loop. And, things happen the way it does. And Fuko's like, do you still trust me after all of that? And Lala's like, no, that's fine. I'm just thinking about how he's a good man after all, isn't he? That jerk Rip, that is. And she also bemoans, she's like, wait, I look just like my sister. Did he ever not have the hots for me? Like, not once did he fucking even try to, make a pass?
Just don't tell her, Fuko. Don't tell her.
And Fuko's just like, look, Mr. Rip always cared about your little sister's sake, and you were an incredibly important person to him because of that, which I guess kind of answers her concerns with that. She's like, look, you guys have all your qualities. It inspired you to press forward till the end. But Latla's like, what's going to happen this time? What should we do in this loop? How can we save my little sister? And Fuko's like, listen, this tragedy involves your two abilities this entire time. She's thinking about what she's going to do to bring change to this. She's going to try to save them. And she notes, I am going to repair, you gotta love the particular word choice, the scarred fate you three bear. So the best
option... my God, Latla's younger sister has the unbear ability. Oh my God.
Unscarred. I guess just means you never get scarred. That's pretty sweet. You can cut your face all up and no one will know.
Unbear either means that bears can't stand to be around you, so they just flee from you no matter what. You can't bear anything, so you've got no stamina. You can't lift anything. Or the unbear, you can't get naked.
Yeah. This is the Second Amendment kind of wording we're trying to figure out.
Right.
What does bear really mean? I do think there's a fun fan fiction potential in a character who's unbearable, and just no one wants to be near them. They're like, God, we need this person to get there because no one can stand to be around this motherfucker.
Just shows up in a room and says, hey guys, you want to be on my podcast?
It's just me, and I walk in like, hey guys, fart noise. Everyone's like, I can't bear to be around this bitch. Fuko notes hey, the best way to solve this is to make you two negators. You're probably already a negator, that's the path you're set on. But Mr. Rip, on the other hand, and Latla's me no, it's fine. You're concerned about whether he's skilled or not to become the vessel for unrepair, right? And you're like, no, Rip's been doing pretty well in this universe. You told me everything that's going to happen, but let's just say I'm positive that jerk as he stands is even more amazing than his past self. And we get Rip stepping out of a fancy car, his little fancy badge flowing in the wind, and I'm not gonna lie,
this fucking 80s action hero over here, Rip Tristan.
It is an amazing. I feel like we've heard his full name before, but it is great seeing it written there where you're like, I guess Rip is your first name, man. Go for it.
It's going to be a little bit difficult to tell Rip apart from all of his other light-haired teammates.
Yeah. If lose your eye.
Lose an eye.
I can't tell who's who. Where do you get your legs chopped off so you can fix those knives to them instead? It is I can't help it though. I'm like, fuck yeah, Rip's back. It's the same thing when Rip showed it before. I'm like completely helpless to not think this character is super cool when he shows up in the douchiest ways
Right.
possible.
No, I mean, like, this is out of all the different, characters that Fuko's going to have to try and, like, do things right this time with. Rip and Lala are possibly, like, the biggest one.
Yeah, I
Because,
mean,
like, how insanely tragic their entire story together is, and the fact that, Billy had to fucking kill him.
yeah, Andy.
Andy,
So
not Billy.
yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest ones. Assuming that maybe Unruin is still someone she has to recruit. Maybe that's like the big finale or something like that. But yeah, this is definitely one of maybe the biggest one. So I'm very excited to see this. I'll be curious to see what's gonna happen here. And I just love like the humor injected throughout the chapter. Everyone was just really entertaining, and I had a good time.
Yeah, it was a very fun chapter, just as a setup chapter. So it was nice. All right, let's move on to Blue Box.
That's right, Blue Box up at the front, baby.
Woo! Chapter number 115, Lucky. So hey, it's the freaking badminton tournament that we've been building up to. And so we kind of just get a reminder of the stakes, which are, hey, there's only 2 slots that come out of this tournament in order to become eligible for the Summer National Singles Tournament. And of course, the 2 walls in Taiki's way are Haryu and Yusa. And so he's like, look, the least that I can do at this tournament for first years is win. So people like look around. It's like, oh hey, look, Sajikawa Yusa school is right over there. They're built different. Wait a minute, why don't I see Yusa with them? And so someone comes up and is like, hey, check it out. I just heard from the front desk. Yusa pulled out of the tournament. And Taiki's like, wait, what? He did what? Yeah, apparently, like, the top players at his school went on a trip to play abroad, and Yusa got selected from the first years. So, yeah.
Oof.
Taiki hyped himself up for this rematch with the guy he sees as his rival, and nope, he didn't show up. No. And Taiki takes this personally.
Not even doesn't show up. Doesn't show up because he's so much better than Taiki is, where he's like, oh no, I was selected to go with the first years or the first team to foreign country and perform there. Like, damn.
Yeah, and Taiki's like, he didn't even see me as competition at all. I was like, he's probably just not thinking of you.
Yeah, knowing what we know of Yusa, he's probably just kind of dazing in and out of consciousness right now until it's time to play badminton.
So meanwhile, the rest of Taiki's teammates are kind of analyzing this competition. They're like, wow, he's playing abroad. Haryu, it seems like kind of amused by this. He says that this is quote unquote cheeky of Yusa. And then they're like, oh man, Taiki was really looking forward to this. And Haryu's like, oh, this might be perfect though. Well, how? Because he basically has no excuse but to win. So they go over that. Chinatsu and Nagisa show up. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what are you guys talking about? And Haryu's like, oh yeah. So the hare hopped on a plane and left. So now the tortoise is wondering what to do. So he's like, look, he needs confidence at this point. Not just the desire to win, but by refusing to lose and having the ability to back up that confidence. Loading himself with that pressure going forward will make him leagues stronger. Just like romance.
Mm-hmm.
It's only after you start dating that you need confidence,
Yep.
I guess.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't that be true, Nick?
Yeah, you wouldn't need confidence when you try to ask someone out.
Yeah, my philosophy is to just wing it until, like, your golden anniversary. And then you start feeling, you're like, maybe they do want to be here.
Nicole, honey, if you're listening, I'm not listening to this advice.
Oh, Nick suddenly has a lot of confidence about his relationship.
I feel like I kind of do. Anyway, so But yeah, Haruhi was still thinking about his kohai. He's like, hey, come on, Taiki, you can't be a challenger forever. You've beaten Yusa once before. But a lot of people were just kind of like thinking that, hey, Yusa's like, was the favorite, so who else is gonna win? But they say like, hey, there is that other guy from Sajikawa. People are saying that he's gonna be the one who wins this tournament, Mochizuki. And we very briefly did meet Mochizuki at that last badminton tournament.
Did we? God.
Very briefly. He's pretty laid back. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, happy to hear that.
Sweet, everyone thinks I'm gonna win. That rocks.
Yeah. So everyone's still talking about, oh, Yusa missed the competition. Oh, Yusa missed the competition. We got check in on Ayame, and she's like, no, bull cut, I mean Yusa, no. She still doesn't even remember his name.
So down bad for this kid.
She's like, I even made sure I got a massage and stretched yesterday. He's like, for what?
She has a little line. She's like, I'm in peak condition.
He's like, for what?
Why would you need to? You know what? It's good you stretched. It is good you stretched.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, I thought I'd get a chance to see him. But it's so cool. He's playing overseas. But hey, so Kyo, checks in on her. Is like, hey, this means that since Yusa's not here, you can just root for your own home team, right? And she's like, I was gonna do that anyway, which is pretty cute. And there's people who are going by and they're like, oh yeah, Mochizuki's gonna win maybe, and he yeah. So Ayame looks up at him and says, who do you think will win?
This is such a great line.
It's so great because he's like, you're asking me that? Don't forget, I'm participating too. All right, Kyo's part of the badminton club.
Everyone's like, oh yeah, Kyo on the badminton team.
And just a very sweet moment where he walks off clearly, like he doesn't show it on his face, but he's clearly upset by like her kind of dismissing his chances of winning without meaning to. And she realizes this as he says this and walks off, and she immediately looks really sad about it. And then she starts like punching the chair in front of her. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't try to be mean. It's very cute.
It is funny. They are pushing this ship a little harder every week, and you know what? Starting to get on board.
Hey, we gotta have some ship. Chinatsu and Taiki are already together.
Yeah, I'm all on board with Kyoyame. Kyoyame?
Yeah?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, that's okay.
Kyoyame! You just gotta say it that same way.
Inuyasha! So Taiki, makes his way through some games. He's doing well. He's pretty hard on himself, though. Like, I had some unnecessary rallies in that.
Oh my god, Black Gendo is right. It should be Ayako! Ayakyo!
Yeah. He runs into Kishi, who I did not remember.
There's legitimately two rivals I remember, and it's Yusa and then older Yusa.
And Kishi apparently is like, oh, it really is you, but your aura has changed since last time. And Taiki's like, you can see auras? What color is mine? It's not that kind of aura. What fucking kind of aura is it? But he says like, yeah, I was watching your match. You gotten really strong. But Taiki's like, oh, I'm gonna get even stronger. He's thinking because I've got to follow the example of someone important to me. And then he really humbles it up and is like, oh yeah, Haruhi Senpai has always beaten me, so I've got to get good enough to return his shots at least, and I'm aiming for nationals and stuff. And from the sidelines, someone goes, "Heh," and Mochizuki is over there wearing his douchey headband. And he's like, oh, sorry, it's just so rare in these day and age to hear someone just go like, oh, I'm going to go to nationals. Oh, hey, you beat Yusa in his practice match. Yeah, I mean, Yusa had been really tired because we've been playing a bunch of matches by then and stuff. Fuck you. He's such a
I
douche.
You do have to bring it up because it's like, yeah, you beat Yusa, after you did a whole lot of matches. But yeah, it is kind of douchey.
Yeah, so Taiki's like, what, don't you want to play in Nationals? And it's like, nah, I play Batman because I like it. And without Yusa in this tournament, I'm lucky, because if he were here, I wouldn't have a chance at winning. And Taiki, as he walks off, is like, lucky? What good is it to have that kind of luck? My God. Calm down, dude.
I do appreciate his thought process where he's like, I don't want to win by default. Like, I want to play the best players. I want to win. I've trained this hard for this reason. And then here's this guy who's like, oh, how fortunate it is that my biggest rival isn't here. I get an automatic bye. It's a good, like, clashing of philosophies between these two characters. And you do see why somebody might find Taiki admirable if this is his thought process all the time. He's just like, no, I want to be the best. I want to beat the best. I don't want to win a tournament because the best isn't here, And that's why he's got a girlfriend, Nick.
Yeah, it's true. Because he pushed himself, I guess.
Uh-huh. He never gives up, never surrenders.
Yep. He's
If Kurt Angle in his prime had him in the ankle lock, he would not tap. He would not. His ankle would be broken because Kurt Angle breaks ankles. He snaps them. But he would not tap out. And that's admirable. You'd never play Batman again, probably, after the snapped ankle. But he didn't tap out, Nick. He's not a coward. Not like that bastard Triple H. He tapped out to an unnamed opponent at WrestleMania 20.
God.
He tapped out to the spirit of New Orleans that was in that building. No, that was 30.
To the spirit of Shawn Michaels, who was outside the ring.
Triple H's like, I can't do this anymore.
Oh no, Shawn's right over there. I can't go on.
I can't even see him anymore. He's down on the ground.
Oh, God.
Anyway, Taiki rules. Let's talk about Spy Family.
Spy Family, Mission 87. Hey, we got some aftermath to the mission that Lloyd and Fiona were involved with.
Yeah,
Fiona's in the hospital.
We get like half a chapter that's really important, and then half of a chapter that's really not.
Yeah, there's like some little bits and pieces here and there throughout the hospital discussion of like, oh, here's some of the aftermath. The handler comes in disguise as a nurse and gives Fiona a breakdown of like the results of everything that happened after that point. She says like, okay, it looks like everything's going on here at the hospital. Fiona's like, please leave. And she's like, I'm here because now I have to fill in because you and Twilight are injured and can't do your jobs.
And she's doing it by just grinding her knuckles into the side of her head. It's literally like the only place you could still hurt her at this point.
Right.
Everything else is like bandaged up in casts.
Yeah, she says, I'm here because of that. And also because I wanted to wear this nurse uniform, which might be the most like light-hearted moment that the handler has gotten in this series.
I totally empathize. It's a cute outfit. I also would want to wear one.
And I like the way it makes her hair look, honestly. So yeah, she goes over like, hey, actually, as it turns out, your bone breaks were clean, and the muscular damage wasn't all that bad. So you're actually not going to be in here that long before you're discharged. And so Fiona thinks, is this because I did all that mountain training to get my revenge match against you, against your being so strong helped me not get injured? I mean, maybe. So the handler says, hey, congrats on the good work, and gives her a little head pat and says, don't be so willing to get yourself killed. I cherish the work you do, and I cherish and adore you. Aww. And Fiona is clearly, utterly perplexed by this because she just stares blankly at her. And she's like, oh, so you cherish and adore me because I obediently work for you, right? And she's like, well, yes, but hey, keep pushing yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Not even for his sake. And then she leaves.
Such a cute thing.
And then Fiona goes, She knows how I feel about Twilight? Yes. Everyone knows how
It
you feel about Twilight, except Twilight.
I love it because she's like, "Oh my god, everyone knows how I feel about Twilight," and we cut to outside, and you could just see a sound effect of like clashing and clattering from inside there, and Handler's walking away going, "Yeah, so adorable." It's just so easy to read. Nick, I am turning a quarter on Nightfall. I'm kind of enjoying her now. I'm liking her. I'm rooting for her. I feel like I'm gonna regret this. I feel like we're gonna get a really annoying Nightfall chapter sometime like in a month or two, and I'm gonna be like, God damn her. But right now, I think she is cute, and I hope she recovers well. And I'm glad that she knows that she's appreciated because that's important.
Yes. You gotta have someone who appreciates her.
Mm-hmm.
We cut to the Forger household. Yor has made breakfast for the family, and she cut up her hands quite a bit, but she apparently has made an okay breakfast because Anya likes it. Aw.
She's like, it's a
Uh,
little tiny, teeny better. She used so many dishes.
so many.
I can't like I'm trying to identify what the food is. It looks like there's a plate. It looked like honestly like she's feeding them a succulent because there's just like a bunch of leaves coming out of a cup and then what looks to be some kind of like maybe cheese or something. Anyways, the entire sink is just full of nonsense.
There is a mallet in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
What I think
not like
is
not like a meat mallet either. Just a big hammer.
it looks like I thought this might have been a cutting board, but now as I look closer, there may be a saw in there as well.
So Lloyd is thinking to himself like, oh man, I need to heal up from all the damage I took on my mission. Anya reads his mind and realizes it and it's like, oh, are you so hurt we can't go on an outing? And Lloyd's like, yeah, I gotta get some rest today. Plus I've got a bunch of, paperwork and stuff to do. So Yor's like, okay, it's okay. We'll just play at home. We'll do it nice and quietly. Lloyd goes to get some fucking sleep. And Anya, just kind of hangs out with Yor. She's doing some drawing and stuff. And Yor says, like, oh, did you have fun at the zoo yesterday? Oh, the adventure we could have had. Anya at the zoo. What a great, what a great 5 chapters that would have been.
That'd have been so fun. We just come back and Lloyd's dying. He's been shot. We're like, wow, what would happen there? But we did get to see Anya at the zoo.
It was pretty great. Anya says, like, oh, I forgot. Here's a lion I captured at the zoo. She pulls the lion plushie out of her backpack.
Cute.
So cute.
Goddamn cute.
Bond gets a little bit jealous because of that, but it's okay. He's learned to be more constructive instead of mauling her stuffed animals. He puffs up the hair around his collar, so he looks a bit like a lion. And Anya's like, "Oh, you're so cool, Bond. Now it could be an elephant." It doesn't work out so well. He tries to just breathe through his nose really hard and just snot.
Just shoots snot out, and everyone's like,
So they just kind of play around with Bond, having him impersonate different animals. He tries to be a giraffe and he looks instead like kind of like an alpaca. And then Yora's like, "Oh, it's okay, Bond. We like you just the way you are." And she gives him a nice brushing, gets him all nice and clean. And Anya's like, "Bond looks happy. Can you brush my hair too?" Brushes Anya's hair. And she's like, "Am I shiny now?" "Yeah." Oh, Frankie comes in. "We should look, I'm all shiny and silky. Let's brush Scruffy's hair too." And then Frankie's like, "No! If I do that, then I'll lose my trademark." And Yora's like, "Yeah, we can't do that to Frankie. Without his hair, no one would even know who he is." Truly biting.
Yeah.
And then the chapter ends on them making a whole bunch of noise. And Lloyd just kind of like pokes his head out. He's very tired. He slams the door.
Yeah, Lloyd's having a rough night. He wants to
Suck it up, you Lloyd. Suck it up.
The first half of the chapter I really like is like a cool lot amount of detail being given between Handler and Nightfall's relationship, and I do just like seeing her like get appreciated and all that. The second half of it is fine. It's like a couple different animal jokes with Bond, and I do really like the moment of Yor just brushing Anya's hair and her being like, "Now I have such silky smooth hair," and it's like very cute.
Yeah.
So,
just cute family time.
yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, where we did the spy stuff, Nick. Now it's time for the X family stuff.
Don't be careful how many X's you put there.
No, Nick, I'm gonna type X family
Nope,
into
nope,
Google.
nope,
My X
nope,
key
nope.
sometimes gets stuck. It types a letter 3 times.
Quit! No.
And I don't need that pesky safe search on. Why would I?
Oh, what's this? Whole family has a good time together. Let's click this and watch the whole video.
Oh my god, their clothes came off so quickly.
Why are they all stuck in washing machines?
Yeah, stupids. One of you has to not be stuck in the washing machine so you can have the sex in the butt, you idiots.
Oh, she did know.
Just every character stuck in it. Yeah, good stuff. And World Trigger.
World Trigger. Oh, come on. Sex jokes and World Trigger, those don't go together.
Never.
Come on. Some separations. All right. World Trigger. Chapter 236. Not the away team mission.
Nick, what a promised land we've gotten into after 6 years of World Trigger being in a non-ending exam arc. We're finally moving something forward.
Chapter 236. Mirai Hatohara. It's a flashback kind of not compilation. What's the term for it? It's kind of a flashback montage sequence.
Flashback montage.
Give us a kind of a catching up on the whole thing that involved Hatohara, whom of course Yuzuru looked up to. Could not shoot worth a shit. Was brought up multiple times when that was Chika's thing, and was part of Ninamiya's squad when she mysteriously vanished and supposedly cavorted with illegal people to steal border technology and stuff. Anyway, we see that Ninamiya confronted Border's leadership and said, "Hey, we should have passed your selection test and been selected for this away mission. Why isn't my squad allowed on the mission?" And they're like, "Because your fucking sniper can't shoot people, dude. Come on, we can't have you have a sniper that can't shoot people." Because there's just a big risk factor to other people and stuff. They say, "Hey, Ninamiya, if you want to go on the mission, why don't you, apply as an individual?" And Ninamiya says, No, it's her goal to join the mission. I'm joining myself. What's the point in that? My squad is more than capable of making up for Hatohara's reluctance to shoot other people. There are operators, there are engineers, there are other non-combatants on the mission as well. Why is Hatohara a problem for you guys? And Commander Kido says, "Look, there's limited personnel slots for this mission. If we have a squad that has 2 non-combatants, Hatohara and your operator, then that's just a larger burden for the rest of the crew. Is that not enough of a reason?" All right, fine. Ninamiya says, "Okay, even with 2 non-combatants, my squad can rise to the top spot A rank. When we do that, I ask you permit us to join the away mission." And to his credit, Kido says, "I'm not taking that deal."
I do appreciate, even with the wildness, he's like, that is not a deal I can make.
No, I am not making a promise to an 18-year-old or whatever the fuck. But he says, "Look, if you achieve that goal, we'll reconsider your participation. Anyway, leave." Just ends the conversation immediately. Ninamiya's left to his own thoughts in the hallway. Izumi comes up to him and is like, "Hey, what's up?" And Ninamiya's like, "Teach me how to shoot like you." What? Teach me everything you know about marksmanship. I mean, no, we're rivals, and you're ranked higher than me as a shooter. So why don't we just, work our way up individually, and then we'll compete in the rank wars. Goodbye. And Ninamiya's like, "No, Izumi," and he bows to him. He says, "I'm begging you."
Aww. They
So
all have such invested relationships with one another.
Yeah. So then Ninamiya, of course, has to break the news to his squad. Hatohara apologizes to everyone because she realizes, it's my fault. And no one, of course, is hard on her about anything. It's like, what will they really reconsider it if we come first in A rank? And their operator is like, they just said they consider it. They didn't promise us anything technically.
Yeah, and the way World Trigger is very good at, they very clinically look through the scenario and are like, they promised us nothing, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
But Ninomiya, however, does say, like, look, if we do take the top spot in A rank, then that'll basically take away their argument that the other squads would be burdened by us going on the mission. The idea that we would hit our squads weaker than us is baseless. So we'll claim the top spot, and I'll take the case to leadership again. And Hadahara is like, what if they still say no, though? I mean, is this all going to be for nothing? All this effort that we poured in? And everyone says, like, hey, look, we've always been aiming for this anyway. Don't dwell on this. Don't let it get you down. Everyone's still very encouraging towards her. And Ninomiya says, like, look, we might be in this for the long haul, but mark my words, we will get on away mission material. And that's meant for all 5 of us. And Hadahara finally perks up at least a little bit at that. She doesn't look very happy, but she smiles at least.
yeah.
She breaks the news to Yuzuru, her little friend, over the phone, and Yuzuru's upset on her behalf and everything. And she's like, "Oh, leadership gets to call the shots and stuff. They don't think I'm cut out for it because I can't shoot others." And Yuzuru's like, "That doesn't make any sense. Toma gets the green light, and they say no to you." And she's like, "Hey, come on, there's nothing wrong with him." And I feel like I let my squad mates down now, and I feel really bad about it. But he says, hey, look, eventually they're going to acknowledge your talents, and maybe you'll even manage to overcome your problems someday. And Hadahara is quiet for a second, and then she's like, I mean, that's really nice of you, but no, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do that. There's just something wrong with me. There's just something wrong with me that I don't want to shoot people in the face. What's wrong with
I'm
me?
an animal. A defect.
And she apologizes to Yuzuru, and that's the end of their phone conversation, and we just get narration saying, and shortly after that, she vanished. So, the truth is that nobody actually knows where Hadahara went. We kind of got a hint that maybe people did, but all that we are really told is that Ninomiya knows that the cover story was a cover story.
Yeah.
And that's just it. So we get a meeting where like Ninomiya's squad mates meet up together and are like, hey guys, Ninomiya is really depressed about this. Then he goes to see Commander Kido, who says, like, look, the cover story is that she received a disciplinary discharge after a violation involving borders classified secrets. That's what everyone's been told. In accordance, your squad's going to be demoted to B rank during the next season. You can't rise back up. Do you have any objections? And Nemia's like, no, none. So goes along with that. And everyone, of course, is, like wondering, like, oh my God, did Hadahara really break the law and everything like that? Well, Yuzuru is like, what the what? Some time goes by, and we see how Yuzuru's squad reacts to this. So, yeah, they don't know that Hadahara is fucking in the neighborhood. She's just, missing. And they're like, oh, and her family went away. What happened?
At this point, they just know she's committed a violation and been like suspended or expelled, essentially.
Right.
And no one can get a hold of her.
Yeah, they're like, where is she? Did she move away? It was like, no, she was kind of distant from her family, so it doesn't mean anything that they moved away. And, what's going on? And Yuzuru's blaming himself, like, damn it, I should have, if only I had taken more time and heard her out when she was clearly going through something. So their operator, there's too many operators in the series, I can't remember all their names, brings up comes up with a plan, which is, we've got to reach her and call her out. So the way to do that is to make an appearance on TV, like the way Arashiyama Squad does. So, okay, so what? So should we ask Arashiyama Squad a favor? No. It can't be them. It's got to be Yuzuru. Makes a public appearance, calls her out, and then she'll get in touch with us. There's nobody closer to her than him. So everyone agrees with this. They're on this.
Uh-huh.
So, all right, we've got this idea. And so they go to see director director Netsuki, who is the director with the weird face
Mhm.
and the blonde and the light colored hair. So he's like, "Ah, you want to be part of the PR squad, huh?"
He talks.
So like,
He also talks like an old timey gangster. We've
yeah,
established.
might as well. I think that he actually talks differently than that. Whenever I did a voice for him, whatever, I can't remember. So they're like, "Hey, look at us. We're a bunch of oddballs, right? We'd be great for a PR team." Uh,
I love it.
and
They lean so hard in. Like, wouldn't it be weird if like you have like this squad of like extraordinarily attractive and charismatic kids that you have, do the PR normally? What if you just got like the weirdest little freaks? Then you had them do it, like as a joke. Wouldn't that be wild?
wouldn't that be great? So Netsuki's like, I mean, I don't know, but I'm like, hey, we'd appeal to a different demographic than our Ashiyama squad, and user is just like, please let us do this. So Netsuki's like, all right, I will consider it, but know that you also need approval from the commander and director. And so he starts to turn away. The squad are like, yeah, all right, we're doing it. And of course, as he turns away, he just thinks like, I mean, I feel bad for them, but I mean, look, they're too
There's
risky.
no way this
No,
works.
no.
Like,
So he's just like, I'll just, tell them no later. But Kageura, who of course can sense others' emotions directed towards him, basically used this as a lie detector in this moment, and is like, you're just giving us false hope while you stall. He's like, no, I said I consider it. That pity of yours cuts deep. You hear me? Hadouken!
yeah, he's straight up fucking Shoryukens this motherfucker.
Just fucking destroys.
It is such a punch. The panel after that shows him, and he's fucking floating. He is in the air, body back, legs still like kind of dangling. Like he got fucking rocked.
Shows how many fighting games I've played too that I got the two moves mixed up. But so fucking Kakizaki fucking witnessed the whole thing and spoke up on their behalf afterwards. Apparently kissed a lot of ass, but as a result of this, Kageura has been demoted to B rank and can't make their way up to A rank.
And this explains how these two groups were in B rank, as we saw, God, like 8 years ago. At this point, yeah.
So they all say to Kageura, like, you guys, you should be lucky. We're just lucky that the police aren't involved in this. And I do like that the only like backlash that Kageura really gets personally is just being told, you screwed up and you know it.
Yeah, you're such a fucking dope.
So they're like, all right, well, plan B. And what do we do next? And user is just like, we should just give up on that. She left without telling me anything. She doesn't want to see any of us. I've accepted it. I'm sorry all of you tried to do this for me. Aww. In the present, he reacts to Inamiya telling him that Hadahara is in the neighborhood, and we are told, oh, there's a high chance she's in the neighborhood. But he says, like, yeah, it's his suspicion that she walked off the base with some triggers, teamed up with a non-border entity, smuggled herself into the neighborhood. This is all very shocking news to Yuzuru. And Ninamiya says, like, look, I get on a logical level why she would do that, because, she was stuck wondering if Border would ever let her join an away mission. But the fact that she just vanished without a word to you, to her squad mates, and allied herself with outsiders instead, as you were so eager to point out, perhaps my approach was problematic. Maybe I did indeed drive Hadahara away. But that doesn't mean I will take any of this lying down. I need to hear her reasons directly. That is my goal on this upcoming mission.
I love
Hell
this.
yeah, Ninamiya. Yeah.
Ninamiya has really gained like a tremendous amount of depth recently. And this chapter really paints him in such an interesting way. Because even as he says there, he's like, yeah, maybe exactly like you said, my approach drove Hadahara away. And you're like, We just watched this flashback. Your approach was like, hey, if we all work really hard together next time, I think that this team is capable of proving everybody wrong. It's not like he yelled at her or anything like that. Like,
Fuck you! You can't shoot people.
but he carries that weight on him
Yeah.
because she left. He's like, I must have done something to be responsible. My approach was not right. And you're like, shit. Like, this is like a teenager whose friend is gone and he's very confused about it. And I don't know. It's just like it really paints a lot of his past actions in a different light for me. You can kind of understand why he's so hard on everybody else because he's also way more hard on himself. I really, really enjoyed this chapter. One, because there's not a single point does any character talk about essays or a battle simulation. Nothing. It's so nice. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, I almost forgot to read this and read it about 5 minutes before we started the recording. And when I got to the point when Kageura uppercutted the fuck out of Natsuki, I was like, what the fuck?
Okay.
I could not believe it.
We
my
have
God, Eden Zero time.
We have a ton of chapters still to talk about, so let's go really quickly through Eden Zero. This is Eden Zero, chapter 254, stage 2. Rebecca is still stuck in the escape room. She's trying to figure her way out. There's a puzzle involving the 5, Chinese elements, I think they are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
fire, water, earth, wood, and metal.
Yes, it's a very video gamey puzzle, which I do appreciate. She finds an extra exit. It leads her to a room with a bunch of doors. She opens doors. Versions of her crewmates are there who just attack her. And she's being told, like, hey, you know, there's a logic to all this. And Rebecca finally, she shouts out, like, there's too many doors. And that, like, gives her this moment of recollection where she's like, I used to say there were too many doors back when I was playing that video game. And all of a sudden, when the doors started glowing, and even Weiss was like, did I program the game to do that? And Rebecca finds Griff on the other side. She's like, oh, hey, I did it. Also, I dislike, this is shitty game design before this point, where it was just like, just open doors and see what happens. It's hard because you don't know. Like, fuck you, Weiss. You suck at game design.
Yeah, it's like there is nothing distinguishing the doors from each other, and there's a billion of them. Yeah. So just keep on trying doors.
Yeah. So Rebecca starts realizing, like, there has been clues all along. She's like, the code on the lock was 0211. That's the day I played the game with the professor. I'm like,
how do you know that?
What a weirdly specific thing to remember, but okay. And she's like, the answer to the elemental clue was Earth. Like the Earth planet Norma. And I'm like, what a fucking stretch. What a goddamn stretch to get to that point. But yeah, she finds Griff. Boom, they save her friends. But hey, Joker Helix is like, no, I'm not done with you. I haven't played enough with you. Rebecca's like, gets attacked, but she's like, no, it's fine. I think I know what Joker really wants. Joker's like, play with me over and over again. And Rebecca's like, no, what you really love is helping people have fun. And when I was a little kid getting tripped into the game, you'd give them a hint because you want them to have a good time. And that's what you really are. And she smashes through this Joker Helix's little mask thing, and inside is another Joker Helix, and she's literally fucking floating in glitter space, and she's like, the real you is kind to everyone, and I want you to keep making lots of awesome games. Help us have fun. And the little visor for Joker Helix becomes translucent, like she lifts it up a little bit, and she's an extraordinarily attractive woman, and she's like, I will.
Guess who called it?
Yeah. I think
basically verbatim.
Yeah. And she's like, I'd really like an open world game with lots of kitties where we can go on a big adventure. And we cut to the real world where Feather is like, oh, I've lost all the Jokers. They've all been eliminated. And that's the end of the chapter. It looks like because she's gotten close to her, she's able to get rid of all the clones.
Yep. It's all basically very cookie cutter, except for the, as you pointed out, very bizarre stretches to it. It's like, oh no, these were hints. Sure.
Part of me is like, I wonder if I go back to that chapter where they first introduced it, like maybe there was a calendar on the wall that said 211, so it was a clue for like me as the audience to get. But yeah, it's very like, all right. I certainly don't remember when I played video games that are deeply like the exact date that I played video games that are deeply important to me. Like, oh yeah, the day I beat Kingdom Hearts 1 and Sephiroth for the first time. Yeah, I don't remember that date. I remember that memory, but
Yeah. My biggest problem with this chapter is that there's a moment where Rebecca's trying to fight off Joker Helix, who of course attacks her with tentacles, because of course she does. And while fighting them off, Rebecca basically goes like fully spread eagle to like push
yeah.
them away with their feet. That's not the problem. It's that Weiss and Shiki are watching this and they just go, "Oh wow, Rebecca, that's a look." Is like,
It's real. Like two women are fighting, and the guys start going like woo, 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 woo energy. Like it's like fucking stop being such weird, gross losers.
that's your friend, and she's being attacked by a giant robot.
Help, maybe whatever.
Let's move on to
I'm gonna be right back.
Cipher Academy. It is chapter number 38. Where's the fucking title of this thing? Did I skip it somehow? I guess I did. Or maybe it doesn't show up until later. Oh well. So chapter 38. Oh, here it is. Here it is. It's like at the end. The place that all chapter titles should be. At the end. Chapter 38, the aftermath. So it's a celebration that people are having. They're having like Baumkuchen, like you know, like class 1A did before when Iroha was going to have the fun. Anyway, so they prepare Baumkuchen, and as it turns out, Iroha has invited the other classes to celebrate with him. And class 1E shows up, and 1E has a little pie paper thing that's got some text written on it. And then we get a little bit of an exchange between some people, including the I don't remember her name. The rep of Class 1E. She says some stuff to Toshisai, and she says to Yosai Mura, "Short hair looks good on you." Not Yosai Mura, to Yukako. Yosai Mura talks to some other people from Class 1E though. Then Yunaki Guisu Invalides shows up, and she also has a little pie chart thing on her. And they say that they've got some important matters to discuss, but Iroha is going to talk about them later. Fucking the bear shows up with the other animal people, and from Class 1B, and 1B's like, "We don't think we actually lost, by the way."
They didn't.
Anyway,
They're like, hey. Well, I mean they did, but they're like, you know, if the rule was being the best, we were the fucking best. So not for nothing.
yeah, I am a bear after all. They've got a little pie chart thing too. So one of them says, "I did notice that there was a possibility we would be competing for the number of survivors. You could say that's exactly why I saved my 3 classmates. But on the other hand, we didn't take the risk of helping Class C, the class we were allied with. So you fucked up there." Hiro, however, says, "I think you let me win." Then he starts to ask her about the battlefield dancer thing, and she says, "We'll talk about that later."
This motherfucker has like 6 side quests pinned. He's like,
Yeah.
talk to this character. This person needs to speak with you. You got this dancer battle. Don't forget about that. Or the dancing soldier. You gotta remember. You gotta finish that side quest at some point.
The Torture Club class shows up as well, as do the last message team, who say, "Is this where our funeral is being held?"
I love these motherfuckers. They're so extra. I want to see them do a whole bunch more.
So hey, all the classes have shown up, although the torture class are like, "Hey, so I'd like to apologize for us getting all worked up during the competition. Is she not here?" And Nero's like, "Oh no, it's just that she doesn't like parties, but don't worry, she took a freshly baked one this time." and he waves off in distance where Anonymity-san is watching the party through a telescope like she did last time when she wasn't part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
But this time she's like celebrating with them, but distantly
Yeah.
because she has social anxiety, which I greatly relate to.
I
This is
feel
adorable.
so much for this character of like, I would like to observe this cool party through a telescope and not have to interact with anyone.
This is great. I love it. So Toshisai declares a toast. It says, "We're all here to celebrate Iroha-kun's promotion to grade Y leader." They all clash cups. We get little bits of people like slicing up Bamkuchen that, like remind us like, oh, hey, there's a person in class 1A who has a sword. Remember that? She doesn't do anything, but she's got a sword.
Uh-huh. All these Class 1A characters who were somewhat relevant before.
Somewhat. Uh, and there's, just little shots of the party. There are also, for some reason, some people volunteer to play a game with Tayu, and it's like, what are you doing? You're going to die. Just like a lot of silent interactions, but mostly between members of different classes as well. And at the end of it, all of the classes put their little pie chart code together, and in basically like Trivial Pursuit style, they fit together into a circle. And when it's all together, it forms the complete code, which of course is much, much, much easier to solve. And Iroha says the code can't be completed unless the 6 of us come together. And so yeah, it's just kind of like a symbolic thing of like, hey, everyone, we got to work together now that the competition's done, essentially.
Yes.
The fucking class D, like your last message thing, are like, are you fucking serious? Are you in your right mind? And Iroha's like, I mean, look, any class could have won the continuous grade Y leader tournament. And that's why I said I want everyone to get along and treasure each other while we crack as many codes as possible so that we can share the peace we attain without losing a single person.
It is, again, a beautiful sentiment. I do admire Aroha's attitude towards these things. Oh, Professor Peanuts is very affectionate as well. He also doesn't want to lose a single person.
Meanwhile, Kagoe, like a little weirdo, is watching this entire thing and says, like she's reciting a fucking prophecy, there are 18 state-of-the-art classes weapons. 8 will be given to 1A, while 2 of the remaining 10 will be given to each of the other classes. It's true that Class A is known as the indiscriminate coding class, but most of them are interested in cryptocurrency and the metaverse!
It's all law. It's what the cool kids talk about. Crypto and metaverses.
You've got me excited too. I can't say this too loudly though. The burdensome legacy of the digital Cipher Academy. Which Cipher soldier will be the one to unearth the 50 billion morgue? My God.
We're back to the morgues, Nick. The morgues.
Just in case you forgot what the series was allegedly all about, it's all about the crypto.
Why we actually started recapping this series to begin with was its weird cryptocurrency references.
Yeah, so that a weird way to end the chapter. A nice, very tender, just nice sentiment that's in the entire rest of it, though. Yeah. New Exorcist! Chapters.
That's its funky intro. New Exorcist!
Chapter 16, Gakuro's Shadow. We get the beginning of this chapter from Shiroha's perspective of like, hey, Yajima is this person who can forge a contract with the spirit like me. And I kind of wonder what kind of person he was. He must have been living a difficult life due to his abilities. And I did feel like that when I tried talking to him because he didn't have any parents like me. So I was kind of interested in him and I interacted with him. But I also felt irritated for some reason. And of course, now in the present, Gakuro has managed to utilize his awakened ability to crack through her barrier. The people that form contracts with her are still observing, but Shiroha's partner observes it looks like your vessel is at its limit. Anyway says, no, this is where it begins for Gakuro and Shiroha. So Shura's still got her Shikigamis and stuff flying around. She flash steps behind him. Well, she switches places with one Shikigami and attacks him. He manages to block it, and she starts, insulting him and saying like, "How are you still fighting back?" But Gakuro is clearly at his limit, so she's like, "What, do you still think you can win? Stop getting your hopes up. Someone like you, who is beneath me in skill and strength, intelligence, can do nothing beyond this point." And it looks briefly like she impales him with her scythe thing, but he manages to block it with his hand. And he says, "I already know I can't beat you at any one thing, but I wanna." He just says like, "I still want to save you," and Shiro just gets really pissed off and says like, "What the fuck do you mean I can't beat you at anything? You have everything. You get to have fun every day. I thought we were like, but no, we're not. I get really irritated just by looking at you because you have friends, you have freedom, you've got a mentor who will guide you step by step, and you're offering me your hand even though you suck. You're really weak.
You're weak. Shit.
You're weak and you have a great life. It's unforgivable. If you can have all that, give me Nue. Give me one precious thing in your life." She, I guess, unleashes a bunch more Shikigami crows. I guess it's referred to as her trump card. And yeah, so she does that, and she says, "You fight by absorbing shadows, right? In that case, I'll send you to a place with no shadows."
Whoa!
The shadowless realm. Gakuro is sent flying up into the air, I guess, and the moonlight shines down on them, and Shiro says, "I'll never accept you," and goes to attack him, and then all of a sudden, that's his hand.
This entire sequence here, I hate this because, like, dynamically, this is a great scene. Like, hey, we're shooting out of the school. We're going to have a midair moonlight battle. Aesthetically and, like, the vibes, so fucking on point. But this entire sequence is so sloppy. Like, this is where the art
Very
really
cramped.
shows, like, how bad it is at, like, making action look cool.
What happens here is Gakuro grabs onto Shiroha's weapon and shocks her, and Gakuro says, "If you claim there are things you lack in life, then let's find them together, all of them." And Shiroha realizes Yajima's shadow is on me.
I feel
which
like
is not
that
especially clear.
Yeah, it is. It is not visible to us as an audience member, but you do think like, well, yeah, you shot him into the space or into the sky, and you are directly below him as he is lit by the moon. Like, I don't know why you would assume there wouldn't be something.
So Gakuro's like, "In exchange, I'll claim your mission, Fujino!" And he uses his weapon and cuts through Shiroha's, which means that he wins because he broke her weapon.
Again, this is a scene that, like, I feel like could be really cool, but it's just not framed dynamically. It just doesn't look good.
So she starts to fall back to Earth and is like, "Oh, it's all over." But of course, Gakuro catches her by the hand and he's like, "Are you okay?" It's like, I mean, you just broke her weapon. She's fine. But she says, "I was envious of you." And
now,
Nue declares Gakuro the winner.
How is everybody flying? I understood, like, hey, you launched me into the air and I'll use my super strength to, like, jump. Everyone just seems to be floating, though, at this point.
Yeah, because they do very casually just turn to go back down.
Yeah, they're like, time to go down now. And I'm like, are these motherfuckers like Dragon Ball Z characters? They're like, nah, I just activated my flight mode and I'll go down.
I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, look, I'm glad that we have a mostly ironic enjoyment of this series because if we had a legitimate one, it would have been like, it doesn't look very cool
Yeah.
when this big important moment happens. Um, so yes, as you say, in theory, it's a cool idea. In practice, didn't really turn out very well.
Yeah, I don't want to like go super hard. Oh god, we have so little time left.
We do.
This is a fine chapter. It could have been an amazing one. I'm very curious to see what happens after this because what was her name? Shinomiya? What's her name?
Shiroha. Shiroha.
Shiroha. Shiroha like was well developed and took time. I'll be curious to see if that's the situation with whatever antagonist we have introduced next time.
In before next chapter, all of her bad family problems are solved. Boom.
Yeah.
So, Tenmaku Cinema, Scene 20, the night before submission. It's the night before the submission for the film contest. And of course, as promised, they are going to show the film, the completed version of The Shore, to the director that has that strong, connection with Himeki. So of course, this is at the same time like they're breaking the news to them that they've made a movie and stuff starring her. And he's like, "Look, we want to submit this movie to the student film contest," and so they're like, "All right, yeah." And the director's like, "Hey, just so you know, Himeki, your mother's on the judges panel." Uh-oh. And only just it's like a real throwaway moment, unfortunately, because everything's so rushed. Hajime's like, "Oh, so that's why she wanted to submit it, so that her mom would see it." Yeah, it's just very quickly goes by that. So, so he's like, "All right, yeah, we'll play your movie and I'll watch it." And Hajime's like, "Oh, I thought you'd be mad." Of course I'm mad. I'm gonna watch it. So, he and the assistant director both sit down. They're very very closely paying attention. And we get to that final scene where Himeki, in characters, Nagisa says, "I'm home." Screen goes black. It's even before opening and closing credits have been added at this point. So the director is like turns to Hajime and is like, "Oh, so you wrote the script as well, huh?" And Hajime is like,
I
Fortunately.
I had an involvement with the script.
So Himeki's like, "Oh yeah," and he did. And so the director's like, "Here's my feedback. The cinematography is really amateur. The camera work doesn't fit the mood. The sound is really unstable here. It's distracting. The log filming is pointless. Also, so much negative feedback immediately." And it goes by, and Hajime to his grade is like, "I gotta take notes. I'm gonna listen to all this feedback and actually, learn from it." And then at the end of all of it, he's just like, "So basically, what you're saying is that everything's bad except the script." But the director says, "I didn't say that. I mean, look, I gotta assume you got lucky when you wrote the script because it is clumsy in places. It feels like you were saved by a strong script in a lot of the scenes. But you've brought out aspects of Himeki that even I haven't been able to. It's good. And I can tell that you really love movies."
Yeah.
Aww.
It's very
Very
cute.
sweet. So afterwards, Himeki and Hajime are going to leave. The director says to Hajime, "Is like, so what now? Look, after you enter this contest, the movie is going to be a project, but it's also going to become a product. Do you want to be a professional filmmaker?" And Hajime doesn't really have an answer for him in that scene. So Hajime and Himeki are going to be the only ones who are actually attending the contest. The other members of the crew are just going to be watching the live stream. And we learn also that Tenmaku has deliberately not watched the movie at all. He watched the film, obviously, but he has not seen any of the editing or anything that's gone into it. He hasn't seen any of the rough versions. He wants to see it for the first time in a theater, which is nice. Hey, it's time for the screenings and stuff. Immediately, people are like, "Oh my god, what the fuck? Himeki Kurakui is here? What the hell?" Because, of course, she makes a big splash. Kurai's mother is there, as said before. And yeah, she now knows, of course, that her fucking daughter is was in one of the submissions for this. They do bring up the point of like, is it going to be a problem if her daughter is one of these? And everything's like, no, it's not going to be a problem. No one else is going to be influenced by it. And she's
like, this is a contest for kids. No one really cares.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
So we just kind of get a very brief, like, well, now I begin screening everything. We do see that, some of the other characters are indeed watching the live stream.
Yep.
And then, hey, it's time for the shore to premiere. And, and Karai is sitting next to Hajime, and she says, like, it's finally happening. And it's like, yeah. And they start the show, the shore. And, our three primary characters, Karai and Hajime and Tenmaku, all sit back to watch the premiere of the movie that they made. And we start to go into it as it's just, a shot of Nagisa floating in the water. And that's our chapter. Oh, God, it feels so rushed. It's just...
It is. I believe that the series is also ending next week, which I was about to say feels right. It doesn't feel right. It feels like that's where the pacing is heading. We'll get some like conclusion to Hibiki and her mother, and then maybe flash forward to like when the debut of their version of the Fang or whatever Tenmaku's other script was supposed to be. It's a bummer that it's ending next week, but I think there's still cool moments to this. I do love that the director is just like, look, these are all the things you did that were bad, but that doesn't mean the movie is bad. Like, these are things that are obviously, like, I could tell that you care about about movies, and you do work hard at this. It's like, oh, it's very sweet to get that. So I like those elements of it a lot.
Yeah. It's got a bunch. It's got a vibe of like, was like a Whisper of the Heart. That's what it reminds me of, which is about a girl writing a story, and then at the end, it's very, very rough, and she's really upset with herself, and it's like, you're fucking 13.
Yeah.
You're it's amazing that you managed to accomplish this, and you will get better. That kind of thing. God, the Elusive Samurai, Chapter 124, Brute Force, 1337. Oh my God, a bunch of Hojo troops have died. Why? Oh, fucking just poison stuff. Genba knows what's happened. There's a like volcanic emission thing that has happened where Uesugi whipped up some chemicals and stuff and poisoned a bunch of people with toxic gas. Le gasp! And so everyone's fucking dead that went to try and seize the river when they went to try and cut off the enemy force's water supply. Everyone's like, oh man, they read us, they knew what we were going to do. So what are we going to do? We can't just cut off their water supply. We've got to change our entire attack strategy. So get some planning. And Tokiyuki, is told like, oh, this is going to be really dangerous. And he's like, I'll do it. Just give me to Ienaga. And yep, that happens. Some unimportant people fight. And then Tokiyuki and Ayako make their way up freaking battlements and stuff. Ayako is crushing on Tokiyuki again. And then some guy shows up and he's like, I am my name, and I'm a big guy with a big weird fucking club thing, and I'm gonna fucking take your woman. She's 14. Well, I'm evil. Also, we have a secret anti-Hojo weapon. It's in this box.
The evil, the good box. No, the bad box. These are bad guys.
Yes. That's the chapter.
Yeah, there's not a ton to say here, because I feel like we're still at this point of not digging up. I do appreciate that we got moments between Ayako and Tokiyuki, though. Like, that was cool, and I do love her little thing of, like, he offers his hand, and he's like, I appreciate, like, she's blushing, she's like, I appreciate the thought, but you cannot bear my weight, so she single-handedly lifts herself all the way up, basically. Yep. That was cool. Akane-banashi, Nick.
Yes, this is going to be Akane-banashi's new home towards the end of the podcast now, because we like to have, good series at the end.
There are going to be times where there's no One Piece, such as next week, and Black Clover is now monthly, and anytime we have to end with Elusive Samurai is just not a great time.
Story 76 of Akane-banashi. Oh, look at this pretty color page. Yay. It's the Shikisai Festival Part 2. We start this off on a flashback to when Gakuro was like first taking part in this festival as an apprentice of Shiguma's school. And of course, Shinta had that big brother role for him. And there's, some cute stuff that we have here where like Gakuro is still very like rough. And so he's not, like speaking properly. He's like going like, yeah! I mean, yes, sir, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But Shinta tells him like, "Hey, look, you've only been a Zenza for like 3 days. This is all new to you. You'll pick it up in time." And Gakuro reflects on like he was not Gakuro. God, Guriko. That's why. Yes. So you realize
But
he's like,
he has a very similar energy to Gakuro,
in
so
this moment he definitely
it's
does.
it's
Yeah.
understandable.
So Guriko says like, yeah, Shinta was like over a dozen years older, but he just talked to me normally, and he was always looking out for me. And September of that year, he was expelled from the school. And of course, 5 months after that was when Akane first showed up and declared that she was going to take on Rakugo. So then we get the results of the contest for the food stands. Find out that Guriko and Akane won, probably with a lot of help from fucking Akane doing all that sales pitching stuff. And we find out that Maikeru got third place by selling nothing because Kyoji got collapsed and couldn't sell anything. Poor guy.
And specifically, he got third with no revenue because everything he made, he immediately just gave back to all the ladies by treating them to things.
Yeah. And he says, "I may have lost the battle, but I won the war." Koguma is exhausted, of course, because he was, having to essentially perform the entire time that they were doing stuff. People do talk about like, hey, Akane's, really good. She's always been the center of attention since she joined up, and about everyone who saw that recent selection round, everyone ranked Akane's skill higher than the girl who won. It reminds me of what I thought about our Rokuro. Ooh. Foreshadowing for a future showdown. Blah blah blah. Akane performs for the festival, and we completely skip past it. She puts on a show, and that's all we see. Because instead, we've got to see Guriko's performance. What?
Yeah, a little bit. We get to check out this little Ludnick, this little goober.
So he takes the stage, and he says, like, there's a stock character in Rakugo defined by his carelessness, and this is a story called "The Careless Nail" about a married couple. They move into a new home. They get into some hijinks because the careless husband hammers in a single nail in a humorous story, and he's doing stuff like that. I hit my finger. Oh, wait! I hit the finger of the other hand. Hey, what? So, and Akane is like, oh yeah, this is like the perfect story for his Nin, because I guess she's just like fully adapting Maikeru's way of looking at things.
She's like, nah, this is legit. This is real.
Then after the festival is done, it's night. People are cleaning up, and Akane is approached by Miss Yoshino, that woman from the Rakugo Cafe. Remember her? Kinda.
Vaguely,
No.
Very. I do vaguely remember her now that you mentioned the Rakugo Cafe.
Right. And she says like, "Oh yeah, you've gotten even better at your Rakugo, and you, Guri-chan, your yakisoba was simply delicious."
Oh, so brutal. Such a brutal moment.
Ow. So, yeah, he thinks about that and is like, "Oh, you'll come back and perform for us sometime, won't you, Akane?" And Gakuro is like, Guriko is like, "I guess I made it a bit too delicious." He approaches Maikeru later on. They hang out and start having a little bit of a drink together, and they're gonna, I guess, like, he's like, "Oh, well, let's watch the fireworks together and stuff." And Guriko says, "I finally understand what you meant when you told me to watch Akane's performance." He thinks, "I know better than anyone how much she's grown." And he watches like some kids like going up the steps while they're playing rock paper scissors with each other, and he thinks, April and February, just a 10-month gap between me and Akane starting up lessons. But now, and he says this part out loud, I'm not as good as Akane.
Yeah.
As the fireworks are going off in the background too.
The thing with the steps is that you play rock, paper, scissors, and whoever wins gets to go up steps. And there's two people on the stairs, and a boy and a girl, and the girl is going much further. And he's like, ah, shit, she has surpassed
Parallels.
me.
Yeah.
It's good. I hesitate to like say like, oh man, Grieco MVP easily, because I'm just like, I just don't know if I still have a ton of interest in his story right now. But I guess I am very curious about what this is going for. Like, if this isn't just going to be like, oh, hey, we need to detail every one of Akane's classmates. Like, I assume this is going to lead to something.
Yeah. It's an interesting story to tell. Just like having this early on, like, hey, he is Akane's senior in the school. He's one of her big brother mentors. And he's like, she's better than me. Like, so how does that play into the role he's going to play in the future?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, Nick. I'm taking over for One Piece now. I'll say the character names wrong.
If you're gonna do One Piece, this is Mutiny.
Yeah.
There you go.
No. Okay. They're covering One Piece. This is chapter 1091. Sentomaru. The Marines are trying to get at the island, but the pacifists are stopping them. The vice admirals are basically like, all right, fuck this. We're just going to get on the island. We're going to push past you guys. But also, the robotic sea beasts are attacking them as well because they're under the control of Vegapunk. So things aren't going super duper great. Inside,
there's a sea beast that chomps on one of the boats,
yeah,
and its eyes read chomp, but it looks like they read chump.
It does. I would love it if that's what it actually says, like chomp. I eat your boat, chomp. We cut back inside of the base. Usopp is watching kind of everything going on. Vegapunk reminds us of the chain of command of the authority chips because this is a very relevant and important detail. They're like, oh my god, Kizaru is here. This is really, really bad. We cut over to Kizaru fighting Sentomaru, and Kizaru is just really, really kicking his ass. Borsalino, I think, is his actual name. He's really just tearing him apart, shooting him with lasers. Sentomaru is defending himself, though. He's like, look, I made a promise with Straw Hat Luffy. I'm not going to, give up. Borsalino's like, when did you start siding with pirates? And we just have Sentomaru say, I'll take the side of anyone who creates an escape route for the man who saved my life. And we get a very tiny flashback to Sentomaru, where as a young child, he beat up a bunch of bears. And the younger Borsalino and Vegapunk walk upon him and are like, wait, no, we were supposed to hunt these bears. Why did you do this? And Sentomaru is just like, I hate villagers. They're so weak. I'm not going back there. And Borsalino's like, you got kicked out, didn't you? And he's like, no, I'm so tough. I don't even get hungry. I just want a job. I want money. And they're like, what do you want to do with that money? I want to buy onigiri. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, you're just hungry. So we cut back to the present for a brief moment as Borsalino's like, oh, you were so adorable back then. I don't know why I gave him that voice, but it feels appropriate for him.
It's gonna be my voice now.
Yeah. Oh. We go back into the flashback again very briefly for Sentomaru to be offered the position of Vegapunk's bodyguard. So he's been given a job. And then him going to Borsalino and be like, hey, can you teach me how to protect Punk? I want, show me what to do. And now we finally stick it to present as Borsalino is like, I taught you everything I could, young Sentomaru. And he seems to be very sentimental in this moment as he fucking delivers the finishing blow. Sentomaru does the sumo strike, but Borsalino is like, my defense is just as tough as yours, and then shoots a gigantic laser beam, takes Sentomaru out. And now that Sentomaru is out, their control over the pacifistas is just allowed for anybody in the Marines to kind of take over at this point. So they take it over. The Marines start shooting the sea beast now. Jay Garcia is like, it sucks we have to kill them, but if we can only keep one, we should probably keep the pacifistas.
Fair enough, yeah.
The Vegapunks are trying to take down the shield. York taunts them. They note, they're like, shit, now that Kizaru is free, he's just going to go right through the laser barrier. We can't stop him there. And everyone's like, shit, this is really bad. That means he's coming straight here. And that is exactly what he does. He just fucking zoops right up into the main lab.
I like how Usopp sums it up as, you mean he's coming here? Yes. But he totally wiped the floor with us.
Yeah, some people pointed out that this has actually been like 15 years, almost to the day, since Kizaru whooped all of their asses so badly. We see that Lilith has her big robot. She's grabbed the Going Sunny. They're running back. But Kizaru is up there now. There's an alarm because there's an intruder. And Kizaru is just like, checklist to keep safe. The power plant, Punk Records, York. All right. Now, checklist to be eliminated. Vegapunk. It's real bad.
Oh boy.
So everybody's kind of freaking out because there's a lot of chaos going on, and Admiral just showed up. This is really, really bad. And Stussy has a moment of like, oh my gosh, as she sees something about to happen. Lucci had decided, I'm actually not on your side. Went to go kill Vegapunk, and Stussy throws herself in between, takes the pistol finger, and goes down. We see Sanji grab Nami's bubble gun and traps Kaku with it.
Good move.
And then Zoro intercepts Lucci, and he's just like, what, you thought because you had backup you could make your move? And Lucci's like, between me and Kizaru, you're dead. So that's not going to happen. Zoro sends both of them outside of the building. They launch each other outside. Kizaru's just like, like once he sees the robot, he's like, I was wondering where the ship is. It sees your robots carrying it. But then he stops because he's like, someone's left the ship. And Luffy's standing there and he's like, oh, hello there. Long time to... Luffy doesn't care, immediately jumps in and kicks him in the face. Kizaru blocks it, but Luffy's like, I'm not really here for that shit. So we end the chapter with Kizaru saying, very bad manners. And Luffy saying, compared to 2 years ago, we're 100 times stronger now.
Yeah, so we, at the very end of this chapter, seem to have some one-on-ones laid out. Zoro versus Lucci, which...
It'll be very interesting. I'm still... Yeah, I mean, that might just be what they're going to do. Like, hey, Zoro's going to fight Lucci, one of Luffy's strongest opponents. And that's just his thing here, or what they're going to ultimately do. But it's still very cool. There's a lot of moving pieces going about, and I'm so pumped to see Luffy fight an Admiral. It's super exciting for me.
Quinn, I think that things are just going to stay in this situation for a while. No parts of this situation are going to move around.
I bet Oda's going to stick to these things. We're going to follow up directly next chapter with Kizaru and Luffy, because once Oda picks his spot, he does not go someplace else.
No, not at all.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Should note, on the topic of One Piece, I have seen the live action One Piece. Unfortunately, Netflix is a struck company, and I don't know how much we qualify as promotion, but promoting struck material is scab work. So I've just taken the stance of I'm not talking about anything until the strike is over. So Netflix, you spent $18 million every episode of the live action One Piece. You can pay your writers and actors.
Come on, guys.
It's not hard.
Just do it. Yeah, so we are done talking about manga this week. Had a lot of good chapters. What was your favorite, Quinn?
That is a tough and good question. I think my favorite is going to be Undead Unluck because of how much it made me laugh. But I don't know if that's the right answer. I had to think on that for a second. My character of the week is Ninomiya. I think Ninomiya had a really, really good chapter. I came out looking really strong.
I'm going to mirror you here. Okay. My favorite series of the week is World Trigger. I think that's just a very nice chapter to get all around. My favorite character this week, my MVP, is Fuko. She just had a lot of really fun interactions. I love the joke of her just I actually forgot about it, but I'll just tell a lie. Yeah, that's it. You're lying. Yes, I am.
She was really funny this week. I think actually I'm gonna change. I'm gonna give One Piece my chapter of the week. I'm in like a One Piece renaissance of moods. So I actually do think this is a cool chapter too. A lot flows pretty well.
So that is gonna do it, guys. What were the audience's picks?
Oh yes, sorry. The audience picked Gariko as their MVP and One Piece as their chapter of the week.
Okay. Well, that is gonna do it for Weekly Manga Recap in this week. And we want to thank you all for joining us here on twitch.tv/RoloT. We record the show here Wednesdays in the evening. Usually 7:30 to 8 is around when we start, but you can stay up to date on that stuff by joining us on our Discord server, which can be joined by clicking the link wherever this gets posted, including on YouTube, on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, and all that stuff. We're also on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast posting places. Video version of the show is on youtube.com/weeklymanga-recap, where we get the occasional title card done for us by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out at Steve Man Art all over the internet. Although maybe not Twitter. I don't know. They seem to be continuing to just like be bad. Just finding new ways to be bad now, including screwing over artists. Shock, horror.
It's wild.
Yeah. But we also want to thank the creators of the opening sequence of the video version of the show, Milo Jack Stillitz and Winsdale Cheddar, for creating that awesome thing for us. And we would also like to thank Ninja X3i, who maintains the Google Doc, where you can do all sorts of stuff like vote for favorite series yourself, recommend series for us to read, such as the one we'll be doing next.
Yeah, Nick.
Time. Not next time, but
it's Sadistic September. We had to remember this.
Oh, and patreon.com/weekly manga recap. Thank you guys for supporting us on there. It allows us to create bonus content for you guys to enjoy, which we like doing. And yeah, so it's Sadistic September, everyone. And there's something about it where most, if not all times we've done it, it hasn't involved us being sadistic, because sadism is the inflicting of pain on another. It's involved us being masochistic because we inflicted it on ourselves. But I have already inflicted the series on myself in full. I haven't inflicted it on other people before, though.
So you're the sadist this time.
Yes, I am. And so for Sadistic September, we will be, look, there's no easy way for me to say it.
Just say it. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
We're doing To Love Ru, and
I already did Monster Musume this year. Do I have to do more just bad, horny harem stuff?
Yes.
Damn it. What are we wrapping this year up with, Nick? Fucking Rent a Girlfriend?
I don't know. Depends on how many more recommendations we get to do for this, I guess.
We're not covering To Love Ru Darkness, all right?
Yet.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
Not for this time, no.
Okay. All right. Call back.